Hello, everyone. My name is Dennis Schultz. I'm the Executive Director for the Blacks in Technology Foundation. If you're not familiar with Blacks in Technology, we are a nonprofit dedicated to the inclusion and promotion of Black people, people of African descent in tech. Today or tonight, we have with us the teams from Discord. We have Jerry Badamosi and Jonathan Lin, who are going to discuss what they do behind the scenes in order to scale and support. I believe it's 19 million servers. Is that how? That's a lot. So I'm sure there's a lot that goes on in an environment that size. I'm curious myself as to how many people it takes to manage an environment like that and what happens when it breaks. So hopefully Jonathan can answer some of those questions, but I'll hand off to Jerry to let her take it away.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It's so nice to be here again with Blacks in Technology. I think this is our second event over the past month. We were able to attend the career fair, and it's exciting to also see some familiar faces that I remember meeting at the career fair here at our booth. So welcome, everyone. We're going to be having a discussion today a little bit about the behind the curtain of how Discord communities are created. And so we have a wonderful member of our engineering team, Jonathan Lin, who's a manager overseeing a lot of this work. And so this is a great opportunity not only to learn more about Discord, the company, learn more about a particular tech conversation, but also talking a little bit more about hopefully upcoming roles as well. So we encourage you all to utilize the chat feature if you have questions, or feel free to raise your hand. I'm also just curious, before we get too far in the weeds, I'm curious where everyone's coming in from today. If you don't mind jumping in the chat and sharing your name and where you're coming in, I think it would be fun to get to know folks who are here and at our talk today. I see Atlanta, so there's an ATLian here. Atlanta represent, and welcome Barbara. I'm in LA today. Another Atlanta. BK all day. We have Raleigh. So I don't know if you, Matthew, if you heard the whole gist about the story of Charlotte, but now we learn. We got Berkeley in the house in Indianapolis. So very distributed across the United States. Welcome to everyone. And if we didn't get to you now, we'll make sure to welcome you into this space. But next slide, please. So again, I'm Jire. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a senior manager of inclusion, diversity, and purpose here at Discord. What does that mean? I feel like it's a pretty cool job. I get to work on all things workforce, workplace, and marketplace. I've been at Discord for 4 months, so not too long. And in my free time, I don't know if you all can hear that there might be some sort of gardening happening, but I hope you all can't hear all that in the background, but apologies there. Of course, right when we're kicking things off. In my free time, I love all things art, architecture, like vintage treasures, antiquing, hiking, and of course, an occasional versus battle here and there. If anyone else feels into all that and loves all that, I'd love to chat with you more there. And thank you to Kia, and I hope I'm saying your name right. All right, next slide. So a little bit more about Discord for those of you who aren't familiar with the platform. The company really started off back in 2015 with this idea on how you can create a space for belonging for folks in their lives using technology. And so Discord really facilitates ways for folks to be able to build community, build opportunities to reach folks that they otherwise wouldn't, as well as empower people to be able to find those communities themselves. So everyone from Kanye West, when he was creating his album, he went to his Discord community, to StockX if you're looking for the newest pair of J's, to folks in the culture leveraging Discord in really unique use cases, or even folks within the crypto world on like DAUs. There's been a lot of interesting use cases of people being able to do that, or even sometimes for me, just wanting to have that lo-fi hip hop in the background. It's really fun. It's a really playful place, and it's very relatable, and it's around the globe, which I think is really powerful. But I think for me, the most powerful aspect is our values that really connect us, not only as a company, but also to our users and vice versa. Next slide, please. So you might be wondering, okay, what does that all mean? Jonathan will be doing a little bit more of a deep dive into our actual platform itself. But just to give you some understanding of our metrics, we have about 150 million monthly active users, which means folks who are coming back to our platform. Then we have about 19 million active servers. And so within Discord, there are different servers that you join, which are essentially, think of it as sub-communities that are part of our broader platform. And so there's 19 million active, which is pretty huge. And thinking about all the tens of people who are on each of these servers is a pretty large scale globally. And that means that there are over 4 billion with a B server conversations every single day. And so just to ground us a little bit more about Discord and the actual platform itself. Next slide, please. So what does that all mean as far as like people at work here? So I'm coming in here today as part of our inclusion, diversity, and purpose team. But as you can see, here's just a snapshot of some of the departments that exist at Discord, of everything from business development to product engineering, which we'll be hearing more about today, to marketing, trust and safety. Just wanted to at least give you a snapshot of some of the departments that really make Discord as a company. But for today, we'll be diving in more into our engineering team. Next slide. So I wanted to provide you some engineering roles. We have quite a few right now as we continue to scale. So right now, Discord is in a super duper high growth space, which means that we're constantly looking for wonderful, amazing humans like you all here to consider joining the Discord and our team. I'm also going to quickly just drop in our career site, which I encourage you all to take a look at if there are specific roles that are interesting to you. But two that I wanted to flag are just on our infrastructure and online community teams for today. But again, there are so many roles within engineering and even across the board that if you're interested in, we're happy to connect with you to talk a little bit more there. Next slide, please. Then in addition to working at Discord, which I think is a pretty cool gig and a place to work, we really pride ourselves in having a total wellness program. What does that mean? And so something that I tend to live by is this idea of cura personalis, which in Latin means care of the whole person. And I feel like at Discord, they really try their best to try to think through mental wellness, physical wellness, financial wellness. So everything from providing support for folks who are on their financial journey to folks who are on their fitness game. You have a stipend of $375 per quarter to helping people who are in the process of needing fertility benefits. Discord provides, I believe it's up to $20,000. Similarly for gender affirmation, Discord provides upwards of about $20,000. As well as everything from the day-to-day. If you, I literally actually sprained my ankle pretty badly yesterday, and I was able to like tap in to Galileo and One Medical and all these things that were otherwise would have been very expensive. And so Discord really tries to provide resources for folks, as well as mental wellness, which is incredibly important. So everything from meditation to coaches and therapy benefits. So just wanting to at least explain a little bit more about Discord. It's more than just working at this place. People actually care about you. We also have time off in the middle of the summer that folks were able to tap into, as well as in about a week and a half. We're fully closed between I believe around the 24th through the new year for the holidays. And so there's just a lot of different whole person benefits that I think makes Discord a pretty cool place to work. And next slide, please. And then again, I just wanted to focus very much so on our inclusion, diversity, and purpose team. And so the three main pillars of our work are our workforce programs, which really think through how we might be able to not only attract, but also retain talent from a diverse set of backgrounds, because it's incredibly important, not only to our belief system, but also Discord as a company is built to create belonging. And so we really have to start not only with our development of our external communities, but even internally. Our workplace is incredibly important to foster inclusion, diversity, and purpose. And so we have a really established employee resource group program led by a person on our team who I actually just saw is in the audience, Jonathan, which is pretty amazing. We have now 8 ERGs covering a number of different backgrounds, everything from our Black ERG, BAM, to folks in our API ERGs, to our folks in our Women in Tech ERG, as well as a lot of intersectional work that brings all of this work together. And then last but not least is our marketplace work, which really focuses on a lot of our external work that we do across the company. And so that's just a little bit of a rundown of our company, where we started our genesis in 2015, to a little bit about what it's like to work at Discord, some upcoming job opportunities, and hopefully ways that we can continue the conversation. I know that was a lot of information. I really sped through that to let you get to the exciting stuff with Jonathan, but any questions there? Feel free to drop it in the chat. Otherwise, I'll pass it over to Jonathan, and then we'll have time throughout his conversation, as well as at the end, to talk a little bit more if there are questions that you have. But otherwise, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jay, and thanks for taking the time to kind of talk about Discord. Yeah, I don't see any questions, but feel free to unmute if you've got any, drop them anytime. All right. Yeah, so today I'm going to be talking a bit about building for communities. Really a whirlwind tour of how do we build products for communities on Discord. Quick agenda, introduction, and then kind of a dive into what is Discord, what do we mean when we say community, and kind of how has the product evolved since we started back in 2015. Then we're going to talk about scheduled events, which is the new product we just launched last month for communities. And finally, as part of talking about scheduled events, we're going to take some time to do a product and engineering deep dive, where we kind of go through and talk about like how we make decisions, trade-offs when building product, and also some of the more like interesting technical pieces that we encountered as we were tackling scheduled events. So yeah, so who am I? I'm Jonathan. I'm an engineering manager at Discord, specifically on our online communities team. And really our team's focused on building products that improve the community experience on Discord. This means whether you are an admin, a moderator, someone looking to build a community, or just someone who's looking to participate in a community that's on something you're interested about. Some of the stuff we've shipped recently include events, stages, which is a speaker audience, kind of like a system for like voice audio calls. The way to even opt your server as a community, and also announcement channels, ways for you to broadcast information across your community, but also many communities beyond your own. So I've been at Discord for about 3 years now, and I was number, I think, 129, so Magikarp. And I've seen it grow from 129 to much past the first generation, to over 600 people. And when I started, I think we had about 25 engineers, and today we have over 200. So Discord's grown a lot in the last 3 years. A couple of random hobbies of mine is, I like to play video games somewhat healthily. And also I do Muay Thai. It's Thai boxing, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So kind of what are communities on Discord? It's kind of a quick primer on the product and our users. So for those that don't know, Discord is a chat app focused around this concept of servers. And servers, not to be confused with like the one that lives in a data center, and though these also live in data centers, is an invite-only by default space for people to come together and talk in text or voice channels. And really, we think when we built Discord, we really cared about kind of conversation and community, and connection between people. We're all about building belonging. So I have a couple of screenshots here that kind of just go over the high level of like, how does a server work? So on the left, you'll see we have the official Python server with some channels. We've got the welcome channel, rules, a code of conduct, roles, and a changelog. And in these channels, you can either talk with people. So here's a random conversation I screenshotted last night with just some text chat. And then also on the right, we have voice channels. So people can hang out, invoice, and kind of like you can have your video on, you can have your video off, and you kind of just sit there, talk, like just vibe for the day or the night. And so when Discord started back in 2015, we started really as a product focused around getting into a game with your friends. We were built around video gaming, and it was really, the experience was tailored towards small groups that just wanted to hop into a voice call and hang out with their friends. But one thing that happened kind of serendipitously is that alongside servers, we built a really powerful permission and role system. And Discord also came with an open API for third-party developers to use. And the combination of these turned out to be a really good match for groups that were looking for a more organized way to talk. And thus, a lot of communities actually adopted Discord as their communication platform. And this was a happy accident. And since 2015, when we first started, we never imagined that we'd have servers with even, say, 1,000 people. But today, we have servers that have over 500,000 members. An example here is the video game Genshin Impact's official server is at our member cap of over 800,000 members. And with 200-something thousand online at any time, I've seen that number grow to like 400,000 or 500,000. So, that's a big scaling problem. But what do I mean when I talk about a community? I think like the term's overloaded, and it's helpful to kind of define what we mean. And so at Discord, we mean a community is a server that's based around an interest with kind of some level of strangers allowed in. You can think of that as, say, your local church group. You might know everybody now, but at some point, there are some people who are strangers. There's also gaming servers around music, servers around YouTubers, Twitch streamers. Here's just a random sample. We've got MKBHD, Marques Brownlee's YouTube channel, has an official Discord server. We've got a Kanye server, which is a fan server that Kanye actually asked for feedback on for this latest album, and the Python server, which is a really popular coding server where people kind of go and talk about Python and how to get help. And so kind of as servers have grown, so have a lot of the challenges and considerations we've had to make when we build products and servers. Every time we build something, we have to kind of think about a bunch of things, most starting with scale. Like when we look at a feature we build, we have to think about how does this work with 10 people in a server, 100 people, 1,000 people, 10,000, 100,000. And nowadays we're looking at what is the experience when you have 1 million people in a shared space. And with any shared space and any level of organization comes access control. Are the default permissions same for this feature? Moderators, one of our big beliefs is that moderators should be able to customize their servers and control access to different parts of it. They should be able to see, moderate, and audit the things that happen. Also, the member experience. How is the first time experience, the repeat experience? What is the experience for this new feature in different sizes of servers for different users? And finally, performance. Like with hundreds of thousands of people doing things on Discord, you get a lot of events, you get a lot of noise, and you get a very, very large amount of data coming in. Today with our mobile phones, like we don't want to burn the battery. So how do we, stay performant, have a snappy app, and also use less power and less bandwidth while doing all of these things? And a lot of other considerations as we've kind of grown and scaled. So before I jump into talking about scheduled events, any questions about Discord or like general questions about like how we build product? Yeah, it's a quick pause. Also, I have the chat open, so you can also pop it in there. Okay, I'm going to keep going. So scheduled events, a quick tour of how we built kind of a hefty new, right here. What has been the most exciting aspect of working at Discord? I think I'm a very big fan of high scale problems. I'm an engineer at heart. I really enjoy kind of the building things that work for 50 people or 10,000 people is very different from like 1 million people or 10 million people or now at 100 million people. And the challenges and trade-offs are just very interesting. I think the people that, I get to work with every day, they're brilliant, and it's just a lot of fun, and it's a great place to learn and get better. So that's what excites me. All right, we're going to jump into scheduled events now. Kind of a quick tour of how we built a hefty new feature on Discord. So with every product, I think it's helpful to start with historical context of how did we get here and why are we doing this? So earlier this year, we wanted to create a new way for moderators to bring their communities together. We just launched stage channels. This was sometime in June, a way for servers to host kind of speaker audience audio events. And the data showed that there was a really good lift in engagement for servers which were hosting stages. I have a couple examples, but we had stages with thousands of people. We had stages that are small, stages that are big, people coming up, coming down. And if you haven't, tried this out, maybe you've tried out Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, similar concepts. And so after working on stages, we shipped it, we'd seen good numbers, but we realized that there wasn't a good way for moderators to plan events and let people know something was happening ahead of time. And we had a good hunch that users wanted this because there were event bots that existed already. With our third-party API, we have bots that are in millions of servers, and event bots were some of the bigger ones. We saw events bots in tens of thousands of servers, and some of the mega bots had events built into them. And our thesis was really that by building events, we'd be able to improve engagement in servers. And when we talk about engagement, we mean voice, text, or participation in like a stage. And so kind of armed with this knowledge, we set out to build scheduled events to solve this. Before I dive further into the product, I think it's useful to see kind of a quick demo. So here's a demo I put together of the feature. So for events, you can go and you create one. Let's say I'm a moderator and I want to hang out with some people at a certain time. Select a place, give it a name. Here it's the quick demo, a time, and then type in a description. In this case, we're just going to take a second to enjoy the sights. Also, it supports markdowns, so you can do some fancy formatting, make it look real pretty. And we create the event. Voila, we're all set. And let's say now the event's about to start. We can start our event. Say we're ready, press start. Notice we're connected immediately to the voice channel. And in this case, unfortunately, no friends. So no one's coming to hang out, but I also wanted to end the event. And on the top left, we also have an indicator that shows the events going on right now. So yeah, that's kind of a quick demo. And so kind of starting with the product process, we often start with a spec, like a product spec or a product design doc. And the first thing we do is we kind of go through, well, what are the user flows we need to support to kind of have this experience? And we broke it down into two sides. Whenever we build for communities, we really focus on both the moderator side and the participant side, because we think of it as we have two sets of users, the users who are creating the experiences and the users that are consuming the experiences. So for the participant flows, we realized we needed to be able to join an event, share an event, browse an event, or browse the list of events in a server, and be an RSVP to an event and get notified. From the moderator side, we realized we needed to be able to create, update, and delete an event, to start an event, and to limit who can see, join, or create this event, so access control. And armed with this, we went to designing. We started with our product spec, and we quickly began by iterating on designs, because designs are cheaper than writing code. And we landed on some of our mocks. You can tell they're mocks with the lorem ipsum text sprinkled throughout. So on the left, we have, well, what happens when I'm browsing and I want to take a look at this event. In the middle, let's say I've been invited. What does this invitation look like? On the right, we have, how do I start an event if people are gathered, ready to hang out? And then also, what is the flow for creating an event? And on the last one, we had our kind of concept of how do we showcase that this event is happening? How do we say, hey, this is going on, you should come check this out. And this time, story time with the legendary cap, big success. at Kurasushi. And with kind of like our designs and a general spec behind us, we started talking about building it. And quickly we realized that as with any product we build, there's a set of trade-offs we need to make and challenges given scope and infrastructure. And some of the hairier ones we ran into were around reminders and notifications, event sharing and public events, real-time updates, and badging and unreads. Let's see. Oh, Takia, you wrote tips and suggestions to get acclimated with Discord as an end user or some sort of cheat sheet. I find it like other platforms intimidating to use at first. Maybe I'm suffering with information overload or FOMO. This is a great call out, Takia. My team's actually focused on this as one of our goals for our next project. So stay tuned. It's something that we are actively trying to make better. The first time experience, especially with a lot of these newer, with a lot of these communities that have grown really quickly, we just have a lot of product areas that we want to make better, because you're joining a server with 100,000 people. It's an overloading experience. You're seeing so many messages go by, so many users, and you're like, oh, I'm lost. What do I do? It's like walking into a giant stadium and just being completely lost. So yeah. So before we jump into the trade-offs and challenges, I wanted to take a second to talk about our values, specifically our product and engineering values. And the reason I bring these up is because it's whenever we're faced with trade-offs, it's useful to have a framework for making decisions. Like, why should we choose to do something over another thing? Because at the end of the day, we have a limited number of people and a limited amount of time, and we want to build the best thing possible. And so whenever faced with these trade-offs, we go back to these values. And for this project, we specifically focused on 3 of them. So the first one is the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto rule. And the way we think about this is we try to scope down the projects and focus on building the 20% of features or doing the 20% of the work that we think drives 80% of the impact. The next one is delight. Like, how do we delight the user? Everything we build should feel above and beyond. Like, it should just look, it should feel great. And the moment you use, you're like, aha, I get it. And finally, ship and iterate. How do we get the product in customers' hands early? You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but we don't really know if we've built the right thing until people start using it. And so this is kind of how we applied these values. So starting with the 80-20 rule. One of the first big trade-offs we ran into was how to handle notifications and reminders. Notifications were pretty easy. We had a high performance notification service that already existed. Every time someone sends a message on Discord, this notification system gets you your notification within like a second. You know, it doesn't matter how many people are in the server. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people might get notified within like a couple of seconds. However, reminders were surprisingly difficult. And this is because at Discord, we didn't have a highly scalable and reliable scheduling system as part of infrastructure. And here we're thinking, well, what can we do because we don't have this? No. And we're looking for an easy alternative that would create a similar experience, and realize that a lot of people who want reminders, they want to know, hey, something's going on in 15 minutes, something's going on in an hour. You're using your calendar already, and your calendar has this feature built in. And so what we realized is, what we can do is we can just build add to calendar and see how many people really use it. And this way, this is a one-day feature rather than a multi-month one to build a highly scalable, reliable scheduling system. This isn't to say we won't do reminders, but this is really like taking our value of, hey, how do we get impact with doing less work, and finding creative solutions where we can save a lot of time and get a pretty good result. But I think it's useful to also talk a little bit about, like, why is this hard, and why we chose not to do it. So, and I think to really understand the decision-making process, we have to take a second to dive a bit into the Discord architecture. So at its core, a Discord server is a big state machine. And for those who don't know what a state machine is, you can think of it as something which has an input, and then when the input happens, it updates internally, like kind of its state of the world. So, for example, you could have a machine that takes quarters, and it can be, hey, I have 1 quarter, like an arcade game. If you put in 1 quarter, it's like, oh, I have 1 quarter. That's 1 out of the 2 quarters I need to play the game. And at 2 quarters, you're like, oh, I have 1 full credit, right? And then you can press the button and it will to get your coins back, and it will return your coins. You'll be like back to 0. So the internal state is how many quarters I have. And kind of the state machine is the piece around it that goes and explains like what happens at each point. And so taking this same concept, but scaling it up a lot, that's kind of what a Discord server has. Each server reacts to incoming events from the client. Say a user sends a message, a user reacts to a message, a user joins voice in a server, or a user, say, wants to leave a server or join a server. And these are all handled by a server which updates its internal state. And here you'll notice I've got kind of this little diagram here with, on the left, we have the client, and then this dashed line, which represents the client and the backend kind of like split. And so you'll see we have our stateless layer, the Python API, and our Python task workers, which don't unfortunately have scheduling capabilities, and kind of a stateful system on the right. Guilds is what we call servers internally, because imagine working on servers, calling them servers, but like working on bare metal servers, you can tell it gets confusing really quickly. So that's why we call them guilds. And these guilds, while they have a great amount of state in them, and they're able to react and do a lot of work and do it really quickly, because we didn't have this robust scheduling system, we started looking at like using guilds to track its own state internally, because it seemed like it was a natural fit. Elixir, which is the language we use to run a lot of our soft real-time services, is really good with state management, timers, sending messages, and handling events coming in. That's why we use it. And so we're thinking, well, a reminder is just say, hey, 15 minutes before a start time, we can just say, hey, fire a reminder. Like that shouldn't be too bad, right? But we realized, and so the way that this works is it runs an infinite loop. So each server on Discord you can think of as this infinite loop on the right, where it has its internal state. It gets a message. It says, hey, handle this message, go back to your loop, and maybe reply to the message I got. And on each server, we run on each box, we run hundreds of thousands of these. So we're thinking, hey, this could be a good fit. The problem was that we ran into an issue with the concept of offline servers, which is, let's say that you have 10 people in a server, but no one's online. Well, because RAM is expensive, we actually turn off servers if they after 10 minutes of an activity. And I know Jerry talked earlier about 19 million servers that are active. We've actually had over 300,000 ever created on Discord. And keeping that in memory is cost prohibitive. It's very, very expensive. So we ran into what I think is a really interesting inverse scale problem, where often we talk about scale being like, hey, the more people there are, the harder it gets. We ran into a case where for larger servers, we never have an issue. If you have 100,000 people, somebody will probably be online. But for small servers where, say, everyone's living in the US, they're all concentrated in a time zone, you're going to miss a reminder because the server goes down. It's kind of one of these interesting inverse scale problems that you rarely see. And to really get a sense of the scale, I wanted to show a couple graphs. So here on the left is the number of concurrent servers running at any time on Discord. I pulled this, I think earlier another day, similar time. This is all Pacific time, around 1 p.m. It's about 92 million servers running concurrently on Discord, many of which just sit there with one person. They use it as like a notepad, as like a scratch, etc. And each machine here runs about 500,000 servers. So we have about 180 boxes. And each machine on average at any time uses about 55 gigs of RAM, which means that across the whole cluster for Discord, we're using 10 terabytes of RAM to maintain the server fleet at any time. So kind of just random fun facts. And so that's why we decided not to do reminders, because we realized, hey, this is actually harder to do, and to do it right and to do it great than we thought it was worth. The next value I want to talk about is delight. As we started closing in on the finish line, we'd look for areas where we felt the experience wasn't great yet. And an obvious area we found was the real-time updates for our RSVP counts. Common flow we saw was you'd create an event, you'd ping everybody with the event embed, and then you'd see this kind of like card you see on the bottom right, except it wouldn't update. But the thing is, Discord's UI is really reactive in real time. And so having anything that doesn't update just feels broken. And so with some clever caching, some performance optimizations, we're able to add real-time updates as we polish the experience, because we're like, how do we make this feel great? And nowadays, when you share this event embed, and the moment you share it, and if you're in a big server, you see a server admin share it, it just goes wild. You go from 1 to 10 to 20 to 100, and just watching the number fly up. It's a really cool experience. The last value I wanted to take some time to talk about is shipping and iterating. We at Discord are pretty big believers in getting feedback early so that we can know whether we're even on the right track. And so we started working on events at around mid-June. And we were able to get an alpha out in about a month and a half to our partners. And really, we think of this first stage of shipping features to communities as working with partnered servers to understand if this is even useful and if it's directionally correct. Oftentimes we'll ship things to partners, learn that this is not something they actually want, and we'll decide, hey, rather than investing in it, we should pick something else. This is qualitative feedback, not quantitative. And to get this done so quickly, what we'll do is we ship a buggy version to a select set of people with a very, very limited scope. Normally, this means we don't build mobile support. We focus on desktop. We focus on web, very basic backend. And we really just say, hey, do you think this is even going to be useful for you? And so we actually shipped this, and for 2 months, we were working with our partners to iterate and improve on it until we felt comfortable 2 months later to ship our first A/B test. And our first A/B test was at first to 1%, just to make sure nothing breaks, and then to 5 or 10% of our users, 5% being the number of people who got it, 10% being the total number of people in the A/B test because of your control and your treatment buckets. And it had really promising results. I have some of the numbers we pulled from our experiment dashboard. Voice users were up about 1.5% relative, speakers about 1.2%, invited users nearly 2%. And these numbers might look a bit small. You're like, oh, 1%, that's not a lot. But these numbers are notoriously hard to move at Discord. Basically, nothing we do ever moves them. So it was a really big win for us, and we're feeling really good about the feature. And so, however, just shipping it as is would not be great, because we also need to take some time to iterate. And one of the pieces of feedback we got from our partners was the lack of new event kind of awareness. When there was a new event that came out, if partners didn't ping, if they didn't badger all of their members, people didn't realize something was going on. And based on our experiment data, this was pretty quickly backed up. We saw that there were a lot of events being created, but not a lot of people were actually checking the events tab and seeing, hey, what's going on here? And so we were like, well, we already have this unread system. What if we badge the event and badge the server? And right now, this is not live yet, even though events is live, because we're still working on it. But it actually presented a very interesting set of technical challenges I wanted to talk about. So first, I was just like, oh, badging can't be that bad, right? We're just putting, like a little dot on the UI. Like, how bad is it? Well, it turns out badging's hard because it's one of our most performance critical flows on our whole infrastructure. And it really helps to think of badging as like what happens when I send a message, right? And you can think of this similar to any chat app you use, say a Facebook Messenger, like iMessage, Telegram, Discord, Instagram. They all have a similar concept of being able to know whether or not a message has been read. Whether or not you've read the message and other people can see it, that's a product decision, but we still need to build this concept. And so kind of want to talk through the flows that we have on this. So on this one side, whenever somebody sends a message, we have to go through and we have to go and update the badge for every user who might see this message. For reference, that's 800,000 people for certain servers when they say update and add everyone. We also need to figure out whether or not someone's online, send them a push notification, all that. And then say I'm going to read a message. The moment I click this channel and I go, oh, I've just read this message, we have to immediately send it to the service and say, hey, this user's read a message, or this user's read the latest message, update here, or maybe say, hey, they've only read up to this point, update only up to here. And then maybe send push notification, check if someone's online, et cetera, et cetera. And so at the time, our system only supported one read state per user per ID. And we needed to add the support for the concept of what we were calling internally a typed read state, because events didn't have a channel. They were not a channel of any sort, and we needed to kind of associate them with your server. You have events per server, you look at the server, you say, hey, here's my events list. Like, okay, so far so good. The problem is that read states is gnarly because each user can have, well, each server can have 500 channels, and a user with Nitro can be in 200 servers and a theoretically infinite number of direct messages. So you can have actually over 100,000 read states per user. In practice, fortunately, this number is much less, even for like very power users, it's like around 10,000, but still it's a large number of read states. And so one thing I want to point out is that each read state is stored in the struct on the right. And I actually just took the screenshot straight from the code. So this is actually the old code we had. So here you'll notice the pub struct read state channel has a mention count. This is a signed 32-bit integer. Last message ID, signed 64-bit integer. Last timestamp, 32-bit integer, and then version, 32-bit integer. If you add them up, you get 32, 64, 32, 32, or 4, 8, 4, and 4, because we can do bytes instead. So 4 plus 8 plus 4 plus 4 is, oh crap, I'm blanking right now, 20, right? So we're at 20. So it's 20 bytes per user for each one of these. One other thing to realize is this is our highest scale service on Discord. At peak, the message act service, this is what happens when I say, hey, I've read a message. It does about 60,000 requests a second. That's 60,000 per second. It's a lot. And the read state service does nearly 100,000 requests per second between reading and writing. So when people are writing messages, when people are reading messages, that's a lot. And all of these writes are persistent to the database. So that's some wild, wild scale. Read states are also really, really memory intensive. You know, each one of these read states items we just talked about was 20 bytes. And we currently run about 33 machines to power the cluster. So on RAM alone, we're using about 2 terabytes of RAM to power read states. And finally, we need this to be fast. Like, it's high performance, but it also has to be really low latency. For these endpoints, we target about 5 milliseconds as our P95, and about our P50 is actually around half a millisecond. And you can see right here that our P95, even for our slowest function on this cluster, is actually about 3.5 milliseconds most of the time, which is wildly, wildly fast. So because we were trying to add something to read states, we went and talked to our infrastructure team and we realized, well, maybe we need to do some capacity planning, because to expand it, let's say we wanted to add 4 more bytes, we'd go from 20 to 24, which is a 20% increase. And a 20% increase is quite a lot. Fortunately, we made one of these really nice discoveries. And I think this one's one of those fun, like, engineering moments where I go, oh, like that stuff they taught me in college is kind of useful. And this one is that there's a concept of memory alignment. So the idea is, because of the way modern computers work, it's faster to read things in hops and hops are normally of 4, 8, 16 or so bytes. Specifically, to pack these structures really efficiently, what Rust does and C, they both do the same thing, is they actually take they see, say, 32-bit integers and 64-bit integers in the same struct, they will have it jump by chunks of 8 bytes. And the reason is because that way you always know at an interval of 8, you're either you're either inside at the beginning or at the end, but you're never in between. You're never going to have the end or the start of a new piece of the data structure, the struct, in another piece of memory. So you get really, really fast access. And well, what we realized was, if you look at the one on the left, it's 4 plus 8 plus 4 plus 4, or 20 bytes, which is not divisible by 8. So actually what was happening was we were already having 4 free bytes. We were already wasting 4 bytes. So we're able to, on the right, add this type field, which is another 32-bit integer for free. And if you don't believe me, I have the Rust pseudocode right there. You can use on the bottom if you actually just want to try it out on a Rust playground. But if you call mem size of read state channel and then the mem size of the read state channel on the right, you'll notice they're both 24. But yeah, so with all this behind us, we shipped events, and we were able to ship it last month to the general public. And I'd love to share some of the data, but it's still coming in. We're less than a month out, but it's been looking really good. We've had over 1 million servers, which is about 10% of the reach we were hoping to get ever, like 10% of our total possible reach in the first month already. And these 1 million servers have some wild reach, probably like 30, 40 million users will have seen an event. But just because it's out, it's not done. We've got a lot more in the pipeline to consider iterating over for events. And even up till now, you can see that our experiment and rollout system shows we've actually revised this experiment over 139 times as we've been building it out. So that's all from me. Yeah, opening up to questions. You can ask me anything. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's super great to kind of see behind the curtain as these products are being developed, and wanting to open up the floor to folks who are here. I do see, again, some familiar faces from our career booth. Feel free to jump in if you have a question, either unmute yourself, or if you feel more comfortable typing in the chat, you can also do that. I just saw a note from Lauren saying that's really cool, especially with partnerships with universities. I know a big aspect of some of the work that we've been doing at Discord has been around student hubs. I don't know, Jonathan, do you know anything about that work, or we can follow up?
Yeah, I can talk a lot about it technically, but I'm probably not the best person to talk about it from a product perspective. The Student Hubs introduces a lot of really fun technical problems we've been kind of like discussing internally around what does access control mean, and how do we kind of expand as we allow for like kind of interconnectivity between servers. Now that we've had servers that talk to each other, what does this mean? And how do we kind of build for the future where it's a lot more complex?
Totally. Our next question from Takia is ACK equals acknowledge. This is so cool. Are your opportunities remote? And also, are you all searching for college interns? I can talk a little bit and do my best to stand in as a recruiter for today. So our recruiting team and in general at Discord, we're very much open to remote work. As we move into 2022, probably more of a hybrid work environment, where you'll see some folks who are located in hubs where we have offices, and some folks who will remain remote and perhaps meet up with their team during different parts of the year. So that definitely is an option. And so if you click onto our career site, which I'll just drop here below, you'll notice that a number of the roles will say remote, either remote first or San Francisco, or remote. San Francisco is where our headquarters is. And so there's a lot of roles there as well. And then to your other question around college interns, this past summer, we did do a internship with a partner, Code 2040, to begin to start doing specifically software engineering internships. For 2022, we're taking a little bit of a pause there to really make sure that we fully continue to resource that program, but more on that soon. And so if you're interested in that, we'd love to still hear from you. And thank you for the question.
Yeah. Also, I am remote myself, so we are definitely very remote friendly. I'm in Seattle.
That is true. You are in Seattle, and that's true. I'm in LA. We're both, none of us are in San Francisco today. Awesome. Any other questions, thoughts, reflections? Feel free to hop in. Right. All going once, going twice. All right. Well, then I will turn the microphone back to Dennis. A big thank you, Jonathan, for your time, your energy here. And it's so nice to meet some of these new faces. And we'll be following up with you all soon.
Yeah, and I appreciate the energy, Jonathan. I definitely learned some things. So I appreciate you for taking the time to kind of walk us through what it is that you guys actually do. Very, very fascinating stuff. So for all of the attendees, we will be posting this to our YouTube channel, the Blacks in Technology Foundation YouTube channel. So if you want to go back and review or share with friends, it will be there. Feel free to access the channel by stopping by the Blacks in Technology Foundation website. And I'll be more than happy to connect you with the folks at Discord if you have any additional questions. But that is all for this evening. Thanks again, guys, and have a good rest of the night.